I always thought senior year would be the happiest time of my life. You know, the kind of year you see in movies, late night drives with friends, homecoming dances, prom pictures, college acceptance letters. All those little moments that are supposed to be frozen in time. And for a while, it actually felt like I was living that dream. His name was Ethan. Tall, messy brown hair, eyes that were somewhere between green and hazel depending on the sunlight. He was the kind of guy who made you believe you were the only person in the world who mattered. We met sophomore year in chemistry. He was my lab partner, and I'll never forget the way he smirked when I nearly set my sleeve on fire trying to light a Bunsen burner. That was Ethan. Always laughing, always making a joke, but somehow still making you feel safe. By the time senior year rolled around, we'd been together for almost 2 years. Everyone in school knew us as that couple, the one people rolled their eyes at for being too in love, but secretly envied. We had our traditions. Friday night milkshakes at Mel's Diner, long walks by the river on Sundays, and a secret notebook where we'd write letters to each other. He called it our forever book. Every page was filled with things like, I can't wait to marry you someday. We're going to live in a house by the beach. Nothing will ever come between us. I believed every single word. In January, I started applying to colleges. My parents always pushed me to dream big, and I'd work my butt off to keep my grades near perfect. I applied to schools all over the country, Harvard, UCLA, NYU, but my heart was set on one, Stanford. It was 2,500 miles away, across the country in California. I didn't think much about the distance at first. Ethan always told me, I'll follow you anywhere, Mads. We're a team. And I believed him. The day I got my acceptance letter was one of the happiest and scariest days of my life. I remember running to Ethan's house, clutching the big envelope like it was made of gold. He was sitting on his porch, tossing a football in the air. When I told him, he froze. You got in? His voice was flat like he couldn't decide if he was happy or not. Yeah, isn't it amazing? I laughed, expecting him to hug me, to pick me up like in those cheesy rom-com moments. But instead, he just stared at the football in his hands. That's far, Mads. I know, I said, my smile faltering. But we'll make it work. We always said we would. He finally smiled, small, but real, and pulled me into his arms. Of course we will. We're forever, remember? That night, we lay under the stars in his backyard, wrapped in a blanket. He traced circles on my hand and whispered about visiting me in California, about late-night phone calls and surprise weekend trips. I fell asleep believing him. What I didn't know then was that the moment I got that acceptance letter, something inside him shifted. I didn't see it. I couldn't. Because when you love someone, you don't look for cracks, you only see the way the light shines through. In the weeks that followed, little things began to change. He started canceling our Friday milkshake dates. His replies to my texts became shorter. He'd disappear for hours with the guys. And when I asked what they'd been up to, he'd shrug and say, nothing important. But I told myself it was just senior year stress. Graduation was coming, and we were both busy. One night, I showed up at one of his basketball games. It wasn't unusual for me to be there. Ethan always said I was his good luck charm. But that night, I caught something I'd never seen before. After the game, he was huddled in the locker room with his friends, and I heard one of them say, bet you can't make her cry before prom. The rest of them laughed. Ethan looked up, saw me standing there, and his smile faltered for just a second before he walked over like nothing had happened. I didn't bring it up. I told myself I'd misheard. Because why would the boy who swore he loved me, who promised me forever, want to make me cry? Looking back now, that was the night the cracks started to spread. The weeks after that basketball game felt different. Not in a we're growing apart way, at least not at first. It was more like there was an invisible wall between us that neither of us wanted to admit was there. Ethan still smiled when he saw me. He still kissed me goodnight and told me he loved me. But those moments, the ones that used to feel so warm, were starting to feel like they had an expiration date stamped on them. I blamed the stress. College decisions were rolling in for everyone, and the air in the hallways was buzzing with excitement and anxiety. Every day, someone new was wearing a sweatshirt from their future school. Every day, another goodbye felt closer. I tried to hold on tighter. We started making California plans, or at least I did. I sent him links to cheap flights from our hometown to San Francisco. I showed him videos of the beaches, the farmers' markets, the cute little cafes I imagined we'd sit in together when he came to visit. He would not smile and say, "Yeah, that looks nice." But I noticed he never suggested plans of his own. Then came Valentine's Day. I'd been saving up for weeks to get him something special. Ethan loved music, so I spent hours making him a scrapbook filled with photos of us, ticket stubs from every concert we'd been to, and handwritten lyrics from the songs that meant the most to us. I even bought us tickets to see his favorite band in April, our last concert together before graduation. When I gave it to him, he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "This is amazing, Mads." "Really?" he said, flipping through the pages. But, I didn't really get you anything." I laughed it off. "It's fine. I don't care about gifts." But inside, it stung. This was the boy who once left roses in my locker for no reason. The boy who carved our initials into the oak tree by the river. Now, on the one day we were supposed to celebrate us, he gave me nothing. Over the next month, his friends started acting weird around me. Whenever I walked into the cafeteria, there'd be whispers. I'd catch them glancing in my direction and then quickly looking away. At first, I thought maybe they just didn't like me. But I'd been around them for years. They'd always been friendly. Something had changed. One afternoon, I stopped by the basketball court after school to surprise Ethan. He was shooting hoops with two of his teammates, Tyler and Chris. I hung back for a moment, watching, and that's when I heard it. "Man, you're running out of time," Tyler said, laughing. "Better make your move before prom." Ethan shot the ball, missed, and smirked. "Relax. I've got this." The words landed in my chest like ice. "Make your move?" What did that even mean? I walked up, pretending I hadn't heard. "Hey, thought I'd walk you home." He hesitated, just for a second, before grabbing his bag. "Yeah, sure." That night, I told myself it was nothing. Just dumb guy talk. But deep down, a little voice whispered, "Something's wrong. Something's not right here." By March, the distance between us wasn't invisible anymore, it was miles wide. We still hung out, but it felt like we were going through the motions. He'd cancel on me at the last minute, saying he had plans with the guys. When we were together, his phone would light up with messages he'd never let me see. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. We were sitting in his car outside my house, and I just blurted it out. "Ethan, are we okay?" He kept his eyes on the steering wheel. "Yeah. Why wouldn't we be?" "I don't know. You've been different, distant. You don't call as much. You barely text me back. And your friends." I trailed off, afraid to say the rest. He sighed, finally looking at me. "Mads, it's just senior year. Everything's changing. I'm just trying to enjoy the time I've got left here before you leave." Before I leave. Not we. I wanted to ask him what "make your move" meant. I wanted to ask why his friends kept looking at me like I was part of some inside joke. But instead, I nodded, pretending I believed him. Because admitting that something was wrong felt scarier than ignoring it. The next few weeks were a blur of pretending. Pretending we were still the couple everyone thought we were. Pretending his coldness didn't hurt. Pretending I didn't feel like I was losing him, piece by piece. Then came the night everything changed. It was a Friday in early April. I was supposed to meet Ethan at Mel's Diner for milkshakes, our first time there in weeks. I got there early, picked our usual booth, and waited. And waited. And waited. 30 minutes passed. No call. No text. Finally, I pulled out my phone and sent him a message. "Hey, everything okay?" A minute later, I got a reply, not from him, but from Tyler. A photo of Ethan at a house party with his arm around another girl, laughing like he used to laugh with me. And that's when I felt the first crack in my forever shatter completely. I stared at the photo on my phone until the screen dimmed, like maybe if I kept looking at it long enough, it would change. That the girl in the picture would turn out to be his cousin, or a family friend, or anyone who wouldn't make my stomach twist into knots. But I knew. I knew from the way his hand rested on her waist, casual, comfortable, like it belonged there. I knew from the way he was leaning toward her, laughing like she was telling him the best story in the world. I knew from the way he wasn't with me, like he promised he would be. My hands were shaking as I typed. "Where are you?" No reply. I thought about calling him, but I couldn't bring myself to hear his voice, not while that image burned in my head. Instead, I grabbed my bag, tossed a 20 on the table for the untouched milkshake I'd ordered, and walked out of Mel's. The air outside was cold, but I barely noticed. My feet carried me down the street before my mind caught up. I wasn't even sure where I was going until I found myself standing outside the party house, a rundown two-story on the edge of town where everyone went when their parents were out of town. Music thumped through the walls, and the faint smell of beer and smoke drifted into the night. I stood there for a long time, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. Part of me wanted to walk away, to go home, crawl under my blankets, and pretend none of this was happening. But another part, the part that had been whispering for months that something was wrong, needed answers. I pushed open the door. The living room was packed, bodies pressed together, laughter spilling over the music. I scanned the crowd, my stomach in knots, and then I saw him. Ethan was at the kitchen counter, pouring himself a drink. The girl from the photo was next to him, her hand resting on his arm. He said something that made her laugh, and she leaned into him like they were sharing a secret. When his eyes finally met mine, something flickered across his face. Not guilt, surprise. Like he hadn't expected me to show up in his world uninvited. "Mads," he said, stepping toward me. "What are you? Who is she?" My voice came out steadier than I expected. He glanced at the girl, then back at me. "She's just a friend." "Just a friend?" I pulled out my phone and held up the photo Tyler had sent me. "Because this doesn't look like just friends." His jaw tightened. "You're overreacting." Overreacting. The words stung worse than the picture. "I came here for answers, Ethan. So give me one good reason why you're here with her instead of at Mel's like you promised." That's when Tyler appeared behind him, grinning like this was all some kind of game. "Guess the clock's ticking, man." Ethan's shoulders tensed. "Shut up, Tyler." I turned to him. "Clock's ticking? What is that supposed to mean?" Tyler shrugged. "Come on, Mads. You really don't know?" "Know what?" My voice was sharp now, slicing through the noise of the party. Tyler exchanged a look with Ethan, one I'd seen them share on the basketball court. That same smirk, that same unspoken secret. And then he said it. "It's just a bet." The room seemed to tilt. Bet?" Ethan shot him a glare. "Tyler, seriously." But Tyler wasn't done. "Yeah. We all pitched in $50. See if Ethan could make you cry before prom. Guess we're about to have a winner." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. My ears rang. My vision blurred. A bet. Our relationship, our forever, was nothing more than a cruel game to him. I turned to Ethan, searching his face for any sign that Tyler was lying, that this was just another dumb joke. But Ethan didn't deny it. He didn't rush to explain. He just stood there, his mouth opening and closing like he couldn't decide which version of the truth would hurt me less. "Mads, it's not." "Don't." My voice cracked, and I hated myself for it. "Don't you dare try to make this sound like it's not exactly what it is." I could feel people staring now. The music was still playing, but in my head, there was only silence. I shoved past him, heading for the door. He called my name, but I didn't look back. I couldn't. By the time I reached the street, the tears were already falling. I kept walking, each step heavier than the last, until I couldn't anymore. I sat down on the curb, pulled my knees to my chest, and let the sobs come. I thought about the notebook, the letters, the plans, the way he used to look at me like I was his whole world. And I realized, maybe I was never his world. Maybe I was just his bet. The weekend after the party felt like the longest 2 days of my life. I didn't answer my phone. I didn't go on social media. I didn't leave my room except to grab water or force down a granola bar. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photo, Ethan with his arm around her, smiling like he'd forgotten I even existed. Every time I opened them, I heard Tyler's voice echoing in my head. It's just a bet. By Monday morning, my stomach was in knots. I thought about skipping school, but part of me wanted to face it. Maybe, just maybe, the whole thing hadn't spread yet. Maybe I could pretend this was still just between us. I was wrong. The moment I stepped into the hallway, I knew. The whisper started immediately. Heads turned. People nudged their friends. And then I saw it, my worst fear plastered across every phone screen. Someone had recorded the moment at the party when Tyler spilled the truth. It was online. Not just a photo. A video. You could see me standing there, demanding answers. You could hear him say, "It's just a bet." You could watch my face crumble in real time. And of course, Ethan didn't look like the villain in the video. He looked calm, cool, detached. Like I was just some dramatic girl blowing things out of proportion. By third period, I'd had enough. I ducked into the bathroom, locking myself in a stall. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. There were already comments under the video. Ouch. Imagine getting dumped like that. Senior year drama at its finest. Ethan always seemed too good for her anyway. It was like reading strangers narrate the worst moment of my life. When lunch came around, I sat outside on the bleachers, away from everyone. I couldn't face the cafeteria. Ethan's table was right in the center, and I knew they'd all be watching. I was halfway through forcing down a sandwich when I heard footsteps. Mads. I didn't have to look up to know it was him. Go away, I said flatly. He sighed and sat down next to me anyway. I didn't mean for it to get out like that. I laughed, sharp and humorless. That's what you're worried about? How it got out. Not the fact that you actually did it? Mads, it wasn't. It wasn't supposed to be real. The bet started as a joke. I didn't think. You didn't think. I cut him off. That much is obvious. He ran a hand through his hair, looking everywhere but at me. At first, yeah, I went along with it. I was mad about you leaving. I thought maybe if I pulled back, you'd, I don't know, want to stay. I stared at him in disbelief. So humiliating me in front of the whole school was your big plan to keep me? His jaw clenched. I wasn't trying to humiliate you. I stood up, my voice shaking but loud enough for him to hear every word. You promised me forever, Ethan. You wrote it down in our notebook. You made me believe in it. And the whole time, you were willing to throw it away for $50 and a laugh with your friends. He flinched at that, but I didn't care. I walked away before he could say anything else. The rest of the day was a blur. People stopped me in the hall to ask if it was true. Some offered fake sympathy. Others just wanted the details. I felt like I was walking around in a fishbowl, every move I made on display. That night, I pulled out the Forever book. Every page was filled with his handwriting, his words, his promises. For a second, I thought about burning it. But then I realized something. This book wasn't about him anymore. It was about me. About everything I gave to someone who didn't deserve it. And that's when the anger kicked in. For days, I'd been drowning in humiliation. But humiliation only lasts until you realize you can fight back. I wasn't going to cry in bathroom stalls anymore. I wasn't going to hide from the whispers. I was going to make sure that if people were talking about me, they were talking about the truth, not the version Ethan's friends wanted them to believe. I started planning. By Tuesday night, the humiliation had cooled into something sharper. I'd spent 2 years loving Ethan, trusting him, building him up in my mind as the kind of guy who would never hurt me. Now I knew exactly what he was capable of, and I wasn't going to let him walk away like nothing happened. The plan came together faster than I expected. I didn't want to scream at him in the hallway or start a messy fight in the cafeteria. That would just make me look like the bitter, heartbroken ex. No, I wanted something that couldn't be twisted, something undeniable. And I already had the perfect weapon, our forever book. It wasn't just filled with his love notes, it had dates, inside jokes, photos. Proof that everything between us was real, that the promises he broke weren't just in my head. And tucked in the back, there was a page I'd never noticed before. List. It wasn't romantic like the rest. Just a bullet point rundown of things to do before graduation in his messy handwriting. Most of it was normal: win last home game, senior prank, beach trip with the guys. But one line stopped me cold. Make her cry before prom, $50. It was there, in black ink. No Tyler, no blurry party video. His words, his handwriting. That night, I took photos of the book, every promise, every sweet memory, and finally, that list. Then I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and wrote a post. I didn't add any dramatic captions. I didn't write a sob story. I just uploaded the pictures in order. The pages where he promised to love me forever. The ticket stubs, the photos of us laughing. The final page, the bet. And then I typed, "This is what forever looks like when it's just a game to him." I hit post and closed my laptop. By morning, it had spread faster than the party video. The same people who'd been whispering about me in the hallway were now looking at me with wide eyes, some with guilt, others with admiration. I heard someone mutter, "She exposed him," as I walked past. When I reached my locker, Ethan was already there. He looked pale, like he hadn't slept. "What the hell, Mads?" he demanded. I tilted my head. "The truth hurts, doesn't it? You didn't have to post that, didn't I?" I said, my voice steady. "You made me a bet. You turned me into a joke. I think people deserve to know who you really are." He opened his mouth, but whatever defense he was about to give died when he saw Tyler walk past, shaking his head. Even his own friends weren't backing him anymore. By lunch, the whispers about me had faded. Now, they were about him. The golden boy, the charming boyfriend, the guy everyone thought was perfect, shattered. I didn't feel joy, exactly. But I felt lighter. That night, I took the forever book out one last time. I tore out the page with the bet on it, tucked it in my desk drawer, not as a reminder of him, but as a reminder of myself, of what I'd survived. Prom came a month later. I went with friends. We danced, we laughed, we took way too many pictures. Ethan was there, standing off to the side with no date, watching. For the first time since we'd broken up, I didn't feel a pang of sadness. I didn't miss him. I didn't wish things had turned out differently. Because I'd realized something. Forever doesn't come from someone else's promise. Forever is what you build for yourself. And mine was just getting started.